Okay, so I'm going to show you through the AsdeqDocs Server web portal. Just logging in now with my Active Directory username and password. I'm an administrator of AsdeqDocs, so I'm seeing this information when I first log in. I'm also seeing the source locations and settings tab. As a user, I would only see libraries and devices. I'm a user as well. I've got both roles, so I see all 4 tabs. As a user, I'd log in, I'd see my list of available libraries in this area here. So some information for the admins when they log in, some performance information, and all the links to the key areas they're going to be going to for the settings and source locations, although they're all available up the top through here. I'll just go through the top of each of these groups as it's the most important, and one of the links throughout each one as well. There's extra information there, it's of use. General settings, mostly stuff here just for the administrator, the address of the website, where the users can access the app from, the AsdeqDocs app. If you've got an MDM, you can use the internal enterprise app store or use over the air. The image there is this image at the top here. The file size warning, so you can use a corporate logo rather than ours. The size warning here is if a user is outside of Wi-Fi range, so they're on 3G, 4G, it will stop them from excessively using that expensive signal, and give them a message if a sync is going to exceed that size limit, letting them know that that's a very large sync and do they really want to do it over an expensive connection. Some other information here for the sysadmin. Won't go into the details there, but just useful information for them if they're investigating any issues on the server. Device management. So here we have a list of all the devices. These are the ones that are currently being used. The administrator can at any time go and do a security wipe of those devices, and within 5 seconds the device will receive the message to start discreetly deleting files. They will only delete the files from the AsdeqDocs container, which means the user's wedding photos, baby photos, emails, things like that are still intact on the device. So you're only affecting the files inside AsdeqDocs, which is a nice feature, so you don't have to anger your staff. If there's another setting under global settings, which we'll get to in a moment, which would mean devices go into a pending state first and then approved manually. Very few customers I've seen use that option. They typically go for the automatic enrollment. LDAP, so we can connect the Active Directory server to look at your existing AsdeqDocs server to the existing Active Directory or LDAP server for user authentication and groups. The Citrix integration, if you've got a Citrix server, we can set up the AsdeqDocs server to talk to the Citrix server. The AsdeqDocs app will use Citrix Receiver. It will send Citrix Receiver a file name and file location. The AsdeqDocs server will monitor the Citrix server. The Citrix server opens the file from the back end, again using the user's permissions. It would allow the user to edit the file. When they save that file, the AsdeqDocs server will scan that individual file and get the information, the updated information. The AsdeqDocs app will recognize that Citrix Receiver has closed and will do a sync. That information will be pulled onto the device. So within seconds, the user has been able to edit a file and get the latest version of that file available to them in AsdeqDocs. At no stage does AsdeqDocs create an unencrypted copy of the file on the device, and the back end it all works as, if you've got Citrix server, you'll understand how that works. Security policy. Automatic device enrollment, as I mentioned a moment ago, so that you don't have to have the management overhead of approving each device manually. I've only got one customer that disables that. Everyone else has got that enabled. Opening an email is about the actions the user can perform on the device, whether they can open a file in another application, which takes it out of the AsdeqDocs secure container and most likely puts it into a non-encrypted container with the other application, and email, whether the user can email a file from AsdeqDocs to one of their contacts or any email address. The file downloads from AsdeqDocs Server under the Libraries tab, which you'll see later on. The user can opt to download the file to their workstation, laptop at home, wherever. This just means they don't have to only use AsdeqDocs app to access the files. Audit logging, a very common feature to have on. I'll show you the audit screen in a moment, just audits users' actions on the device. Encryption on the device, we don't have that turned on this server just because it's a pre-sale server and none of the information is sensitive on it, but that's typically turned on in user environments. Enforce restricted SSL policy is about stopping man-in-the-middle attacks. It requires a certificate on the server. Uploads, this allows at a global level uploads to be enabled within each of the source locations. So even though that's ticked, each source location still can turn uploads on or off. Advanced library management means the users can edit, create, manage the libraries on their device. Without that, they can still manage whether a device syncs a library or not, but they don't necessarily have access or easy access to edit and add new libraries on the device. Cache credentials offline login are intrinsically linked. Cache credentials keeps a hashed or an encrypted copy of the user's username and password on the device. It's hidden, no one can see it, it's encrypted, it's safe. It requires that to confirm that they are who they say they are when they are trying to access AsdeqDocs outside of a strong signal area. So if they're outside of 3G range or 4G range, not on Wi-Fi, such as on a plane or a salesperson that's going into regional areas or just wherever there's a poor signal strength. The background logout time is similar to the policy that's typically used in enterprises on laptops and workstations, that after a certain amount of time you've got to log back in again. If the AsdeqDocs app is in the background while the user uses Safari or email or some other app, then after that allotted time they will be required to put in their username and password to access AsdeqDocs again. User and group management, role management, about which users have which roles, users and admins. File types, about which which files will sync to a device and which are indexed. There's a big list there. As you can see, these are the ones that are natively iOS will open. The ones that you don't want indexed for searching are files with non-human readable content, such as movie files or audio. Certificate management, where we put in certificates. Audit logs. So if we do a quick search here, let's see which users have been using AsdeqDocs most recently, such as me. If we search, we can search by action type. So if I do a search by just login, mostly just me, another user there. Let's try. So I'll select all and we'll pick another user, we'll pick Catherine, who's been doing demonstrations in the US. Okay, now what I can also do here, we can see the actions that she's performed: open libraries, open folders, viewing files. If she's done a search, we could see which term she searched for here. We see the entire page on the map. We can see she's been going around San Francisco and the Palo Alto area. If we zoom in, we can see which actions she performed where. Now this is a very powerful feature if you've got a potential security leak or a user that's gone rogue. You can see which files have opened where, and a bit of forensic investigation tool there. Application logs and monitoring is information for the administrators. There's a simple send information to us, support information. It sends the latest day's logs and the monitoring graphs, similar to you saw on the login page. View sessions shows us who's currently logged in. Device and library reports show us information as to which libraries are on which devices, who has them, whether they're up to date, whether those libraries are shared. On the device, it's a report that takes a bit longer to run, but it shows us the individual file names as well, which is why it takes longer to run. That's sort of it for the settings page. Under source locations, these are where we point AsdeqDocs at the backend file repositories. So our pre-sales server here has several different repository types: file shares, WebDAV, SharePoint, Documentum, Nuxio, and some local files on the server itself. So users can create their libraries from one or many of these file repositories, these source locations. We'll just create one quickly now for file share. Drill in. So that's a folder or a share on a server. We'll create it at this level, and users can drill in when they create their libraries to whichever folder they require, or subfolder, even down to an individual file. The rescreen frequency, I'll set this hourly, just before the hour. Now the reason I use a slow time here, the file shares will scan each time a user saves to there as well. We've got a file watcher, so anytime a file is updated, it'll go off and do a mini scan of the folder that that file was saved into. So I don't need to scan repetitively the whole source location. Index that are added to libraries is the default, and it's the best option to go with. It does the minimal amount of scan each time. User credentials and system credentials for authentication. If I tick system credentials, it uses this account to provide the files to the device. So it ignores the user permissions or the specific permissions on the back end. The only time you'd really want to use that is for sharing OH&S or acceptable use, IT use policies. You don't just want your users to see those files. You may want contractors, the board, anyone who's going to be using AsdeqDocs to see those acceptable use OH&S policies as well. Typically, user credentials is the one that's used for AsdeqDocs source locations, and that will use the user's credentials to see which files, or assess which files and folders they are able to have access to on the back end. So the back end permissions are respected by AsdeqDocs on the device. A user will not see files that on the device that they cannot natively see from the back end when they're at their workstation at their desk. Allowing uploads means that I can upload files from the device back to the back end file repositories. The AsdeqDocs server doesn't store any of the files, it just acts as a conduit between the back end and the device. For allowing uploads, the user has to have write permissions to a folder or write permissions on a specific file before they can upload that file. Okay, so we save this now, and that will go off and do a quick scan, which only take a few seconds to do, and then that source location will be available. So a user can pick their library from any of the available source locations. An example of where that would be useful is as a project manager, I may have my working files on a project in a file share. I may have collaboration information in SharePoint for the whole team, and we may have contracts in something like Documentum. As you can see here, many repository types that we can connect to natively. By the time you see this video, we should have added Trim, IBM Connections, IBM FileNet, and perhaps some others. They're all just about to be released. So that's it for the admin. The libraries and devices are for the users. As a user, this is the screen I would be presented with when I first log in. We have the libraries here that I have created or that have been shared with me. The green logo means they've been created by someone else and shared with me. The blue logo, created by me and shared with others. The padlock is mandatory. It's being forced on my device. Again, HR policies and things like that would be good cases for that. And libraries that are created by me just for me. They're not being shared with anybody. If I create a library now, let's call another one. Sent to all my devices. I do have multiple, so I'll leave that ticked. make mandatory would push it to those devices, and if I share it with people, it would push it to the people I share it with. So I won't tick that right now. So I can click into, I can add files individually, I can drill into SharePoint or any other the source locations that are available. I can add an entire folder to a library. I can go to any of the different, I know this one's quite a big one, I know, tell a lie. So I'll just add that whole thing to the library. So I'm just building up a library with files and folders. Okay, that's probably enough to prove my point. So here's our library. Because we had that allow download through the web portal enabled, I can download direct from here, drill in, download any of those files. Let me see, download any of the files. I can drill in and out as I need. So that library, as it is, this is the structure that it will be synced to the device. If I want to share that, then simply add, oops, do a search for a group and add them. So it's now shared with those users, and they will get that on their devices. It's not mandatory, so they can optionally turn that library on or off on their device. Here, if I go to the devices, this is one of the devices I have. Actually, on this server, I only got the one device. And these are the libraries that are currently enabled or disabled. So they can be turned on and off. I can see the size of those libraries, the amount of available space on that device, so I can adequately manage what I want to do on the device. I've also got the option to security wipe my own device. So if I'm traveling abroad, I lose the device or it's stolen from me, but it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning back home in the office, I've got no one I can contact as far as administrators go to do a wipe of the device or to do anything about it. I can log into the web portal, do a security wipe of my own device so all the important company files have been removed, and then go about doing insurance forms with the local authorities. And let work know, so when they first come in, with an email, when they first come in the morning, they can get on with the procedures for a lost device. That's basically the AsdeqDocs server. Now, as for rolling out to users, it's actually quite an easy process. If I use this create email here, I'll show you that's the email. So it's sending this link, and I can send that to all the users. With some extra instructions. The extra instructions being they use this button here, open the email on the device, use this button here to download the app to their device, and that will use that location from the general settings, and then they click on here once it's installed on their device, the app's installed, they click on here and that will auto configure their device, AsdeqDocs on their device, to point to this server. So rollout is very, very quick and easy. Takes maybe a minute or two for the sysadmin, takes maybe a minute for the user to have their device pointing at AsdeqDocs, and then they pick the libraries or start creating libraries and syncing them to their device. At this stage I'd normally say, do you have any questions, but this is a video, so please direct your questions to our salesperson there doing the presentation. Thank you for your time.